Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to be talking all about childhood trauma and how this shows up in your PMDD relationship. And what better day to be recording this episode than Mother's Day here in the US. I am currently traveling, so I'm in New York City right now. I've technically been all over the place the last couple of days. I came to Virginia last week to go to my graduation for my doctorate. So I got my doctorate last year. For those who are new to the channel or the podcast, I got my doctorate last year, 6 years in the making. If you scroll back a couple episodes, you'll be able to find out, that whole journey. But 6 years in the making of just getting my doctorate, and doing all the research with specifically PMDD partners, PMDD relationships. And I finished it last year, and I got everything published and sent out to all of the counselors, psychologists, gynecologists, all the people, so that they can know how to integrate their practice with having PMDD relationship tools, because that was the one thing that I was seeing that was really lacking when people started to come on board with researching PMDD. They were leaving relationships out of it. And I was like, there's this big gaping hole, because even if create a pill or create some kind of techniques or tools to manage, maybe anxiety or maybe depression or maybe bloating or all of these things. I'm like, don't forget about the relationships, because that's the aspect of my PMDD that has caused me the most suffering. I'm a person that I have a high tolerance for pain. And maybe that comes from being in the military for over 20 years, but the emotional pain that I've gotten from being in PMDD relationships where things have not gone right has been the most painful, heart-wrenching symptom and thing that I've dealt with every single month that I've gone into PMDD. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I dedicated my doctorate practice. I respect all of the other practitioners that are helping with all of the other symptoms, but I specifically said, for my whole practice, I'm specifically going to be working on PMDD relationships. And that's what I've dedicated my practice to, my life to, the way I serve you, the way I show up. I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. And there's 3 realms and that I help with. It's PMDD rage, PMDD attachment styles, and PMDD intrusive thoughts. Those are the 3 main avenues that I work with my private clients with, because all of those really funnel to a lot of the suicidal ideations, which is in my doctorate, my publication. So anyway, that's why I was on the East Coast coming from California. And really, I started to have an emotional roller coaster as soon as I started to travel on this trip. But the reason why I say emotional roller coaster is because I was in my follicular phase. This particular month, for some odd reason, the time of the month when my cycle was supposed to come on, my period was supposed to come on, it didn't really fully come on. I was just spotting a little bit. And so, how you have that hope where you're like, maybe I'm just going to have a light period. Maybe my cycle is going to be really light. And I was so excited about that. And then right when I was supposed to be in ovulation and going into my good days, my period actually came. So I'm not sure if that's because I was been traveling so much this month. I had just gotten back from Mexico and I was going to all of these places. So it probably threw my cycle off, but it really actually surprised me because you know what that means is I was actually in PMDD when I thought that I wasn't in PMDD. I thought I was in my good days. And I was tracking that I was still in PMDD once my cycle came. So I had to go back and relook at that and say, how come, my PMDD days weren't as bad as I projected them to be because I thought I was in my good days. The mind can play tricks on you, and the mind has a lot of power over the symptoms that we have that relate to our PMDD relationships. So I had to really dig deep on that one. But so I was feeling good because I was about to go on this trip to finally get my doctorate and walk across the stage. So because my university only has graduations once a year, even though I graduated last year, technically graduated, I didn't get a chance to walk across the stage until this year. So this had kind of been a long time coming. And then also with everything that was going on with the breakup from my ex-PMDD partner, it made me finishing my doctorate less exciting, less joyful. And I was really, I had to check myself because I was really upset about that because I had finally reached the end of this journey last year of finishing my doctorate, and me and my ex PMDD partner were in one of the worst places in our PMDD relationship. It was literally breaking and falling apart. And I was literally grasping, trying to use all the tools in order to save it. And when it actually ended, I felt like such a failure. I felt so hurt, not just because of, the relationship ending, but then also because I had seen how my tools had helped so many other PMDD partners. And it's almost like you couldn't even do it for yourself. I was really in that self-loathing and beating myself up. I'm like, you can help all of these other PMDD partners and you can't even help yourself. That's what my PMDD brain was telling me. And so now that I was finally getting the opportunity to walk across the stage, I said, this is my opportunity to have a redo, kind of redo things and celebrate and be proud of myself and be happy about it and all of these other things. Because remember, this time last year, I was happy that I was finishing my doctorate, but I was also finishing my PMDD relationship, which I never thought was ever going to end. And so I was like, I have to go. It's gonna be so much fun. And so I actually ended up doing client calls up until like a couple of hours before my flight. It was a lot of times, if you're my private client, you can, even if you don't see openings on my calendar, you can always reach out to me and let me know if there's things that are going on in your PMDD relationship, because I know what that feels like to be alone and have a blow up and have something happen, or have, you're about to break up, or your partner's having suicidal ideations, or there's times where you just really need me. And you know that if you message me, I will drop everything that I'm doing. As long as I'm not physically on a plane, I will drop everything that I'm doing in order to be there for you. And that's exactly what happened. Um, I had planned out my day and I was catching like a red eye because I was going from all the way from California all the way to DC, which is like two 4-hour flights, two 3.5-hour flights. But I prefer to take night flights. That way I can sleep on the plane. I also have my herniated disc injury, which made sitting for that long very, very painful. So I was trying to prepare for that. And the same day that this happened, I had the client calls. And then I also went to work. And I was gifted these tickets to see Justin Timberlake. And they were free tickets. And they were like, oh, thank you for doing such a good job. Here's some free tickets. And they're for tonight. I'm like, okay, so how am I going to work this out? Because I wasn't going to miss JT. I love him so much. The energy. I always remember just being such low moments in PMDD and just getting up and blasting some music. And one of my favorite songs by Justin Timberlake is, that song where he was like, I got that sunshine in my pocket. I got that. Yeah, that one. Um, what is the song? To just dance. I'm trying to get to the chorus. Magic, taste the magic. You know the dance song. Okay, I could keep singing. I'm singing it in my mind. I'm sorry. I'll keep going. Anyway, I think it's off of that one of those movies he did. But look it up. Anyway, so I had tickets. I'm gonna give you the timeline because this is what's so crazy. So I had my client call from 5 to 6:30, right? All my clients calls, the majority of them are 90 minutes. So if you've not booked those sessions, make sure you go to my website, inlovewithpmdd.com. Just go to ways to work with me and you can pick either a 90-minute session, which is what I normally do for couples and a lot of the deep issues that I have. But then I also just started opening up 30-minute sessions because if you really just need something quick that you need to just talk to me about, you need me to provide you with a tool. A lot of my clients, I already have the background on your relationship. I've been working with you for over 2 years now, 3 years, 4 years. And so you don't really have to go into the basics of it. So I would say for my current clients, if you need like a quick session, 30 minutes, I've also made that available on my website. So you just go there so you can find out, just click on a session, look at my calendar. But like I said, if you look on my calendar to book one of those sessions and you don't see an open time that works for you, because I have clients in over 60 countries, if you don't see a time that works for you because of your time zone, email me, rose@inlovewithpmdd.com. Or you can either DM me on Instagram, in love with PMDD. I get those notifications all times of the day, all times of the night. And if I get that message and I can accommodate you, I definitely will do that. So one of my private clients took advantage of that. They were like, "Oh, I don't see an opening on her calendar. Dr. Rose, can I have a session with you?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." So I booked a session for 5 to 6:30. It was like nighttime later in their time, for them. And then right after that, I had the concert and I was going with one of my friends who was having like a really, really, really hard day. And she had told me earlier, I'm just feeling down. I'm feeling depressed. Things aren't going right. And I'm like, you know what? This would be the perfect way to just gift her with some tickets to go. And so when I told her, she was so excited. She's like, "Stop playing with me, Rose." And I'm like, "No, we're going." Like, so I'm like, "Get dressed, I'll meet you there. I have the tickets." And then we'll have a good time. And then right after that, I was going to go and catch my flight because my flight was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I figure if the concert starts at 7:30, it'll be over at like 10 at the latest. I'll head to the airport, like all of the things. So we ended up, I had a session. The session went a little bit over, but I wrapped it up. And then I ended up getting to the concert at 8 o'clock, which was fine because it was downtown. It's crazy parking, but it was almost perfect to kind of have that session really, really help my private client, and then go off and, relax and have fun. And I was going to start this trip. And so I was already packed, had my bags by the door, and then I left out because I was just going to come back home, pick up my bags, and then go to the airport. So I went out to the concert. It was absolutely amazing. Justin Timberlake is an amazing performer. The dancing, the singing, all of the things. And we were like singing to the top of our lungs, dancing and just having such a good time. And she was so grateful. She was like, "Thank you so much, Rose. Like, I feel so much better. I was really down." And that's why I say use a lot of, these tools such as music therapy, dancing, moving your body. It's really hard to be depressed when you're dancing and singing around. I've tried it. It doesn't really work. It really lifts your mood, specifically if it's in the moment where you find yourself being stuck. Get yourself out of that place and just really dance, sing, do something that makes you feel good. Watch a movie, preferably one that is not like one of the Hallmark movies where it looks like everybody's in love and everything's so amazing and you're sitting here, going through it. But I would just say, look, if you're going to use movies, which I tell my clients to use a lot of times, go watch something funny. Like if you're going to watch something with couples, watch Wedding Crashers, one of my favorite movies. Watch Wedding Crashers, watch 50 First Dates, watch, romantic comedies, rom-coms, or if you're, into the more masculine thing, watch an action movie, watch a sci-fi thriller. My daughter is really into, the criminal shows. Oh my gosh. Yeah, if you're in PMDD range, I would not watch that show because it gives you a lot of ideas of what you can do to your partner. It's not good. Anyway, so we went and I remember walking back because I had to find parking. I should have Ubered, but I remember walking back from after the concert was over, because it was over around 10, and just feeling so happy, so fulfilled. And I was just so hopeful, like, oh, this is going to be so amazing. And I'm going to this concert, or I went to this concert. I feel so good. And now I'm about to get on a plane and go to my graduation. This is why I say it was an emotional roller coaster, because I get back to the house, me and my daughter are going, we got out our bags packed, we get in the Uber, we go all the way to the airport, which is a further airport. It's like 45 minutes away. And the first thing that happened, my Uber driver was driving so slow. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I had no idea why he was driving so slow, because it's nobody on the road. It's 1 o'clock in the morning on a weekday. Like, we were traveling on a Wednesday. And I purposely like to travel in the middle of the week when a lot of people aren't traveling. So I was like, what is going on? Why is he driving so, and he was like driving slow and then like looking around like he was paranoid, which made me paranoid, because I'm like, what are we looking at? Like, it's nothing here. So we finally get to the airport, and I go to check in my bags, and the lady tells me, I'm not going to say what airline it is, because I'm not one of those people that are going to bash other airlines, but I totally could, because the service that I got was horrible. But she basically was like, "Oh, we can't put your bags on the plane because it's too late." And I immediately thought of that Uber driver. I was like, had he not been, acting like we were riding on a bicycle. But I was like, you know what? Okay. I was like, can you just book me on the next flight? Well, she went in the computer and she basically stated that the next flight that she could get me on, right now it's like Wednesday, like 1 o'clock in the morning. She's like, the next flight we can get you on is you would fly all day Thursday and then arrive in Virginia on Friday morning at 11. Well, here's the problem. There's a couple problems. Number one, the reason why I was traveling on Wednesday was because I was supposed to have dinner with my sisters on that Thursday. So I was going to fly and then arrive in Virginia in the afternoon and then have dinner with my sisters at 7:30. And number two, Friday at 10 o'clock was my actual graduation, where I'm walking across the stage. So there was two things that I was going to miss taking this flight. And she was like, that's the only way we can rebook you, because again, this airline doesn't have a lot of flights going from West Coast to East Coast. And so I basically was like, well, I'm not going to do this. Like, I can't fly all that way and miss my graduation. So then I said, you know what? I'm just going to go on my phone and I'm going to book another flight while I'm here at the airport, through another airline that did have a flight going out in the morning. Do you know that my actual phone was not allowing me to book the flight? It kept saying error, error, error. And I was so sleepy and I was so exhausted. And I say, you know what? It's not going to work with me trying to solve the problem right now, sleep deprived. Because if when you have sleep deprivation and you're trying to solve a problem and you're stressed and overwhelmed, like, it just makes everything worse. So I said, I'll just go at this point, I'm not going to catch any flight. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get some sleep. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I have to catch a flight right back to the airport, I'll do that. But at least I'll do it being rested. So we rode in the Uber, another Uber back home with our same bags. And I felt like I was in a daze. I felt like I had got slapped in the face. I was totally freaking out. So I finally got home. I got some sleep and I woke up in the morning, and my friend thought I was already in Virginia. So she was like, are you having fun with your sisters and blah, blah. And I was like, I'm still in California. And she's like, what happened? I thought you were supposed to catch your flight. So I kind of had to tell her, I had to call my sister and tell her that I wasn't going to be able to make dinner because I missed my flight. And she was like, oh no. And so I'm like, yeah. So I felt super disappointed because I wasn't going to be able to spend time with my sisters. But then I told my friend, one of my best friends, I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to go. I'm just not going to go to graduation. It doesn't look like it's going to work. I'm just going to stay home and all of these things. And she was kind of like, no, you have to go. Like, you have to. This is your graduation. You worked so hard for this. I saw you work hard for this, and being in PMDD and doing all these things and still making it through. Like, she was reminding me. Thank goodness. This is why I say you cannot do life alone, because thank goodness she was reminding me of the importance of even going to this graduation. I'm like, no, I already got the degree. It's not a big deal. I was not able to see things clearly because I was in that place of suffering. And I know a lot of you deal with that when you're in PMDD and when you're suffering and you're sleep deprived and you're frustrated and you're going through all of these issues with your PMDD partner. I know you get to that place where you don't see the point. You don't see the point of even being in the PMDD relationship. You don't see the point of working through your issues. You know what? You're like, you know what? Let's just break up. That's the mindset that I was in. But except I was in it with my graduation. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I was downplaying the importance of the graduation itself. I'm like, it's not even that important to walk across the stage, like all of these things. And a lot of you may deal with this in your relationship. You may say, oh, I can just be single. It's not a big deal that, I have a partner. I can do everything on my own. I won't have to deal with the stress of being in a relationship. It's actually going to be better. You can actually start convincing yourself that you'll be better off single. You'll be better off without being in a relationship. And that causes you to stop fighting for your relationship. So every single time you get in that mindset of convincing yourself that you could just be single and not have a partner and it's no big deal and you're downplaying their contribution and saying anything that they're really doing in the relationship, I can do myself. I don't really need them to do it. This is when you get caught in that loop of feeling like you don't need your PMDD partner and that you can convince yourself to break up. And a lot of times when I'm working with my private clients, I'm working with them while they're in the depth of those thoughts because the PMDD thoughts will convince you. It's like that best friend that you don't like that's convincing you, yeah, you don't need them. You don't need to be in this relationship. You were doing fine without them. Why would you add the stress of being in the relationship? Like, what's the point? What's the big deal? You can be single and have all the peace that you want. You see how PMDD works with your brain and it convinces you, and then you start treating your partner as if you don't need them. I've done that so many times. So many times when I've been in PMDD, I've allowed my PMDD brain and the ego to really convince me that I don't really need to be with my PMDD partner. I'm fine without them. I was happy without them. And it was really hard because a lot of these things are actually true, right? I actually am a really happy person when I'm single. So PMDD will use that and say, so why do you need a partner? What's the big deal? So that's the mindset that I was in with my graduation. I'm like, what's the big deal about walking across the stage? You already got your degree. Like they're not giving you any prize or any extra money. You're actually you paid all the money um for the degree. So what's the point of going there? And my friend just kept saying, she was like, no, no, no. Because the reason why my best friend was telling me this was because I was the one that convinced her to go to the same university. She graduated with her degree, with her master's in the university. And she had actually gone to the commencement, gone to the graduation. So she knew what it was like. My experience, remember, my experience with going to the same university, which I convinced my ex PMDD partner to go, my situation was horrible because we had the biggest PMDD fight ever when we went to the university. So I really didn't have any positive memories of graduation going there anyway. So that was more of a reason for me not to go. It was almost borderline traumatic for me to go. But she was like, no, 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 you have to go. So I went online and I was like, okay, let me try to book a flight now that I'm home. And I was trying to book the flight and it kept sending me on either long flights or flights that cost like literally all I needed was a one-way ticket because I book all of my tickets in one way because I go to different places. So the one-way ticket for me and my daughter was literally like $600. And I remember looking at that price and I was like, $600 US for a one-way ticket to fly on two flights, not even a straight flight, to go to this graduation, which cost $1 billion, by the way. Like it's 6 years of doctorate level schooling. It already cost a lot of money to get the degree. And now I was having to pay $600 just to go one way. And I was like, so I was at that fork in the road. It was like either I could go and pay the $600 or I could not go and pretty much just stay at home and rest and relax and just chill. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go because I don't want to have any regrets. That is my biggest thing when it comes to anything that I do in life, when it comes to decision making. I dealt with this with the decision to end the relationship with my PMDD partner, which was I do not want to have any regrets. I want to know that I've done everything, tried everything, given everything, emptied out my tank in order to make this happen. Um, And so that's why I said I'm going to go to this graduation, because what I would hate to happen is for me to not go, me to see all the pictures, me to have, the fear of missing out, me to be fully rested and then been like, I should have just gone. That was my worst fear, is to go through a situation and have regrets and not be able to undo it. And this was one of those situations where I wasn't going to be able to undo it. I was either going to walk across the stage, class of 2024, or I wasn't. With my ex PMDD partner, when I decided to end the relationship, there were a lot of times earlier in our journey where I could have ended the relationship, but I didn't want to end it prematurely. I wanted to try everything. I wanted to have the hard conversations. I wanted to put myself out there. I wanted to basically deplete myself of everything that I had in order to save the relationship. And I did that. And that's why I didn't have any regrets as to how the relationship ended, because I spent so much time doing the work. I spent so much time trying to make it work. And in this situation, I was literally looking at a price tag and it was like, listen, for $600, you can go to your graduation. And this is what I always tell my private clients is, if you are not trying to save your relationship with everything that you have, it is a possibility that you are going to have regrets. I know that sometimes when you think about working with me and you're saying, oh, I don't have the money or I can't afford it, I always tell my private clients when we go on consultations, what is it going to cost you to not work with me and to not know that you've tried everything? I don't care if you've tried a billion things before, which a lot of times we have PMDD. This is what we do. We go online, we try everything, we do everything. If you've not tried having private sessions with me to save your PMDD relationship, you've not tried everything. I literally provide you with PMDD customized tools for your relationship that has nothing to do with generalized anxiety, generalized depression, generalized ADHD, generalized autism, generalized PTSD, all of these other programs that are out there that are just dealing with some of the symptoms that are integrated into PMDD relationships. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about PMDD tools, meaning if you have PMDD, if your partner has PMDD, the tools that you have for your relationship has to be customized to the fluctuation of the state that your partner is in when they're going through their cycle. They has to be, or else it's not going to work. And a lot of times counselors, therapists, they don't really understand how to integrate those tools. And I feel like they're getting there, but it's very strategic. And so I was in that place of saying, I can't say that I tried everything until I pay the $600 and go on this flight and go there. So if you're in that place in your relationship and you know that you haven't tried sessions with me, you haven't taken that step, you need to do that, because things that happen in your PMDD relationship over time, they only get worse. They don't get better. Without having the tools, they don't get better. And I know a lot of times I've heard, once private clients start to work with me, they say, Dr. Rose, I really wish I would have worked with you earlier. That's always the comment that they make, because they understand the state that they were in and they saw where it got worse. And they're like, if we would have just worked together after this, maybe we wouldn't be so far gone. Maybe we wouldn't have done the damage that we've done. Maybe we wouldn't have to repair as much as we have to repair. But here's what I want to let you know: whatever stage that you are in your PMDD relationship, whatever stage you're in, I can help you. I can provide you with the tools. I don't want you to feel like you need to get it together. You need to work on it on your own in order for you to come to me and work with me. I don't want you to work with me when you've gotten it all together. The whole purpose of working with me is for me to help you get it together. And I don't want you to try to do something that has taken me 6 years of doctoral studies to create. A lot of times you are trying to fix the relationship yourself without having the experience and the tools. If I haven't worked with hundreds and hundreds of PMDD partners, I wouldn't know how to help you. If I hadn't gone through 6 years of the studies that I've gone through with interviewing and counseling and providing support to PMDD partners, I wouldn't be able to help you. If I hadn't experienced over 20 years of PMDD myself and 20 years of being in relationships with PMDD partners, I wouldn't know how to help you. So you see how there's a culmination of my experience with myself in intimate relationships with PMDD, my experience with PMDD partners, and most of all, my experience with suffering in PMDD. Without my suffering, I honestly wouldn't know how to go into the depths of what you're really going through or what your partner is really going through in PMDD to be able to create these tools. So I don't want you without that experience, without that education, without those experiences that I don't want you to go through. I don't want you to try to fix it and beat yourself up and say, I don't know why I can't make it work on my own. There's a reason why you're not meant to. And I don't want you to have to go through the suffering that I went through, 20 years of not getting it right. I want me to have gone through my suffering for a reason so that you don't have to go through it. So you can say, let me avoid the mistakes that Dr. Rose has taken. Let me avoid the suffering that she has gone through. Let me learn from someone that has gone through something and made it to the other side, and not so that I don't have to repeat those same periods of suffering. Because I don't want to say mistakes because I've learned through all of them. That's why I'm very careful with my words. Words have power. I don't think any of my relationships have been a mistake. I don't think that I would honestly be able to help you to the extent that I'm able to had I not had my PMDD partners. And I'm so grateful for them. That is why no matter how much suffering that I've gone through, no matter how much turmoil, trauma, all the things, I'm so grateful for every PMDD partner that I've had because I've learned something and I've grown and I've gained tools that have been able to help, you all. So go to my website, inlovewithpmdd.com, book those sessions. I put the link in the show notes so that you know that you have help in that area and you're not supposed to do it alone. And if you've been doing it alone and it's getting worse, that doesn't mean that you're with the wrong partner. It means you don't have the tools and that's okay. And that's why you're listening here to get the tools. But if you know that you need those tools customized, there's a lot of tools that I give here for free. And I do that every single episode. There's not an episode that you can listen to where I haven't provided you with tools. And I do that for a reason. But if you know that you need customized tools, which is where I really get to know you and your PMDD partner and what's going on in your relationship, that's the quicker way, honestly. It's kind of like when I decided to start doing a lot of my graphics, for my business. I went on Canva and I used to go on Canva and spend all night long, creating these graphics to post on social media and doing all these things. You know what the quicker way for me was, which my business coach said? My business coach was like, absolutely. You can go on Canva and you can DIY it and you can do it yourself. Earlier in my journey with my business, I did. Because that's I felt like, oh, I would just buy the program and do it myself. Graphic design is not my thing. So guess what? It took me all night long to do these graphics. She said, you want an easier way to do it? And I hired her. And I have a lot of people in my life that I hire, that I pay money to teach me the better way. So everything that I'm telling you to do, I do myself. I have a lot of counselors. I have a lot of, and not counselors in what I do, but I mean counselors in my business, how to run a psychology business. I have a business mentor, how to run my business, I have an accountant. I have people that I pay to keep me accountable for everything that I do. And I remember having a session with her and I'm like, yeah, this is taking up a lot of my time and it's not really my thing. So it takes me longer. She's like, you want a quicker way to do it? And I was like, absolutely. Like, tell me the secret. I thought she was going to tell me the secret. So remember, I'm paying her to tell me because she spent over 10 years in business, of mistakes and trial and error. And I want to learn from somebody that I don't want to go through 10 years of trial and error. So I asked her, I'm like, what's the secret? And she said two words that completely changed my business and my life and gave me a lot of my time back, gave me a lot of my energy back, gave me a lot of my, when I went into PMDD, I suffered less. And I was like, what's the secret? And she said two words: hire someone. And I remember my initial resistance to this. And I'm like, hire someone. I don't, I remember a time where I said, I can't afford to hire someone. She said, okay, well then keep doing it on your own. You can do that. And I did. And it caused me suffering because I was tired. I was exhausted. It didn't look like quality that I wanted to put out. And I kept going back to her, again, I hired her. I'm like, tell me what to do. And she said, hire someone. Make a list of all the things that are causing you to suffer in your business and hire someone. Is it going to cost you? Yes. But what are you going to gain from it? And I remember the first month that I did it, I was like, fine. I did it for even my podcast producer. Because I'm not a techie person. So I was doing all the behind the scenes and making sure the things. And I have someone that does a lot of the business side for me, the techie side. And I hired someone. And I remember that first month, and my symptoms were literally decreased because I didn't have a lot of anxiety. I didn't have a lot of sleep deprivation because I hired someone to do the things that I needed done for my business. And I hired people that found joy in it. That because there's people that love to do these graphic designs, and they love to do this podcast producing, and they love to produce videos and sound. That's their thing. Just like PMDD relationships are my thing. So when I'm telling you hire someone for your PMDD relationship instead of trying to do it for yourself, this is because this is my passion. It's way easier for me to come up with tools on your PMDD relationships by just listening to you for a couple minutes. It just comes to me because of the experience that I have. The same thing for my podcast producer. It's nothing for them to produce an episode, to edit the episode, to transcribe the episode. It's nothing for my Canva person to go in there and create graphic designs for my podcast episode. It's nothing for them to do it. And they find joy in it. And I find joy in helping my PMDD partners. So if you've not hired someone to get you to stop being frustrated, and because a lot of times you're trying to tell your PMDD partner, this is what you need to do. You're giving them articles. You're sending them episodes of my podcast to your partner. And a lot of times by the time I work with them privately, they're like, yeah, Dr. Rose, she tried to send me a couple of your episodes and I don't have time for that. A lot of times partners don't want to listen to episodes of my podcast as much as they want to get the exact tools of what to do. They don't want to dissect the podcast and see what applies to them and what doesn't. They just want to talk to me and get the tools directly. And I see that some can listen to the podcast and find value and they can create their own. And I get that. But then some are just like, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Tell me what not to do. And let's go from there. So know your partner. Know if your partner is not really listening to you when you're sending them articles and you're telling them, I need them to be more supportive. I need them to do the work. They probably just need to talk to me. To where I can say, what's really going on in a relationship on your side? Here are the tools. Bam, go forth. Because I give homework on every session. Go forth and do the things or not do the things. And then we can work with each other from there. So I had to make that decision. Was I going to pay the $600? Was I going to invest in something that was literally potentially going to ease my mind, to cause me to have a lot of joy? That's what the private sessions do for you. It eases your mind. It causes you to have joy and happiness and, number one, peace in your relationship again. So guess what I did? I invested. I paid the $600. And yes, I could have rationalized it. $600 for a one-way. I could have stayed in my house and did that for days. Would that have gotten me to the graduation? Absolutely not. Talking about the price that it was going to cost me was not going to end my suffering. And at that point, I wasn't suffering. I was frustrated. I was depressed. I had anxiety. I didn't know what anything was going to look like. And again, I was in my follicular days. I was supposed to be living my best life. So I paid the $600. I repacked all my bags because I had taken a little bit of the stuff off, and we went to catch the flights. And I sat on the flights and I was really just processing everything. Like, man, how did I go from having this amazing time after the Justin Timberlake concert, thinking that I'm going straight on the plane, and now I was in this place of feeling so down, so low. That's why I said it's been an emotional week for me. And then I get a text from my sister because I tell my sister, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to make it today, but I can make it tomorrow." And I'm literally in the airport thinking it's no big deal. Like, okay, I'll just go tomorrow. And she literally texts me and says, "Oh, I'm not available. I'm not available tomorrow. I was only available today." And I had to sit with that. And you know why I had to sit with that? Because for those of you that don't know my story, I was in foster care at the age of 3. My biological parents abandoned me. There was a lot of drug misuse. There was a lot of prison time. There was a lot of just drama with them as parents. And at the age of 3, I was placed in foster care. At the age of 5, I was adopted. And so the relationship that I had with my biological family was very traumatic. And then I got adopted into that family. And so the sister that I'm talking to you about is my adopted sister. And we had reconnected after, years of not speaking and all these things, and we had established a relationship. And, she was basically, her and my other sister were basically just saying how grateful they were that I allowed them to be in my life after all the things that happened in childhood, because in my adopted home, I was also abused. And I left the home and I had to heal from a lot of what happened, but I had had them back in my life and I thought everything was fine because I have a very forgive and forget mentality. Like if I forgive you, I'm not bringing up stuff from the past and I'm not rehashing it. I'm not doing, I have a knack for doing that. And I teach my private clients how to do that because I know a lot of times what causes you to suffer with your PMDD partner is that they've apologized, but you're still feeling bitterness. You're still feeling resentful. You're still treating them differently because of what they did to you in the past. And so I have that kind of switch that I can switch where once I've taken the time to deal with it and process it, I'm looking at you like a fresh creature, like you've never done anything to me. So when my sister said she didn't have time for me, because I think she said something like work or something, whatever it was, I remember my brain going, here we go again. I was so hurt. I felt so abandoned. A lot of my childhood trauma came up because I felt like I'm coming to where you live. I'm traveling, across thousands of miles. And you're telling me I didn't even ask my family to come to my graduation. Guess what? Nobody came to my graduation. They were all invited. They were all invited to come to my graduation and none of them came. And it was in the town that they lived in. It was like 3 hours away. And nobody showed up. And my biological and my adopted family both live in that area. And it's a huge family. It's not like a couple people, it's a huge family. And I remember sitting at my graduation, fast forward a little bit, and I was sitting there and when your name is called, there's all these people that like scream your name and all these things. And it was just me and my daughter there. And I remember feeling the sense of my childhood trauma coming up again, where I was so hurt. I felt abandoned. I felt just like nobody cared about me. Nobody loved me. Why wouldn't they show up for me? Because I go out of my way to show up for so many people. And I think when you get to that point where it's like this mirror of these people, there was this thing where it says you would move mountains, you would swim mountains or something for someone, um, just to be there for them, just to support them. And they wouldn't throw water on you if you were on fire, kind of thing. They wouldn't put a bottle of water on you if you were on fire. And I remember not wanting to face the reality of that. A lot of times for me, when childhood trauma comes up, I initially get into this stage of denial to where I have someone in my life that coaches me and she literally has to shake me and be like, listen, Rose, look at the reality of the situation. If they wanted to be here, they would have been there. There's not an excuse in the world because when you want to do something, you find a way to do it. And I know that about people. I've seen it time and time again. If I've seen it time and time again, a lot of times with my private clients where they say, oh, I would work with you, but I don't have time. I would work with you, but I don't have money. I would work with you, but my partner doesn't want to. When they finally get to a point where they want to do it, when they really desire to do it, they find a way to make it happen. They find the money, they find the time, they find the motivation, they find whatever it is that they need to find in order to make it happen. And there's nobody that can convince you. This is why I never convince people to work with me. You're either going to do it or you're not. Because when you decide to do it, there's nothing that can stop you. And so when the coach that I had was literally telling me, hey, if your family wanted to be there for you, they would have. And so what I was struggling with was because I had to have a session in order to get myself out of this mindset. I was struggling with, but their words. Because remember, if you've listened to me ever, words of affirmation is my love language. When someone tells me something, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, I believe them. I don't question them. I don't second guess them. I don't ask them to prove it. I genuinely believe the best in people. So I believe that what you're telling me is what you really mean. And she has to literally, so my coach had to literally smack me with another dose of reality and say, listen, they say things to make them feel better in the moment because that's what sounds good, but they don't really mean it. And I'm like, how do you know they don't mean it? Because are they here? Are they at your graduation? Like let's go over the facts. And I'm telling you what she had to work with me through because this may help you. Your PMDD partner may be saying things to you about the relationship. I want to work on this. I want this to work. I'm in this. I'm dedicated to you. I'm all these things that sound really amazing. But then ask yourself the question, what are their actions? When someone's actions don't match their words, you have to make a decision off of what you're choosing to believe. I had to get out of the mindset of stop believing someone's words when their actions don't match. And I'm going to repeat that because this is a hard lesson that I had to learn. And this is really going to help you in your PMDD relationship. Stop believing someone's words when their actions don't match. You need the combination of both in order for you to see change within your PMDD relationship. You need the combination of words and actions in order to make a change. Because if you have positive words, but the same negative actions, there's no change. So it's like a science or a mathematical formula. We need positive words and positive actions in order to make a positive change. Because if you have positive words and negative actions, there's no change. If you have negative actions and positive words, there's still no change. You need to have the combination of both. And I had to recognize that my new mantra was that if your words and your actions don't match and there's no alignment, then I can't believe you. If your words and actions don't align, then I can't believe you. So I use mantras a lot of times. I tell you a lot of mantras here, and I also tell you a lot with my private clients. I create these mantras so that the next time someone tells me something, like, oh, I love you so much, I'm going to be there for you. If your words and actions don't align, I don't believe you. And then I had to get rid of a lot of bitterness and resentment because I started to get bitter and resentful because, you start thinking about everything that you've done for your partner and all the things that you've done for them over the years. I can't believe that they're not here for me. I can't believe they would do this for me. I can't believe that they would not do this for me. You get stuck in your head and there's a lot of bitterness and resentment and unforgiveness. And I had to process that immediately because the longer you allow bitterness, resentment, and unforgiveness to set in, you start to harden your heart and you start to look at your PMDD partner differently. You start to treat them differently. And it doesn't matter what your PMDD partner does at that point that's positive, you'll never be in that place of receiving it because you're so bitter and resentful over things that you're holding on to in the past. And a lot of you need to forgive your PMDD partner for things that they've done in the past, things that they've taken accountability for, things that they've apologized for, but you've not really let go of that. And I know it's easier said than done because a lot of this has to be done on or has been done for me. I've had to internally do it and use a lot of tools that I use with my private clients. So if that's something you need help with, book those private sessions. For bitterness and resentment and unforgiveness, we can focus one full session on that because it takes a while. It's a process depending on where you are in your cycle as well. But that's probably a roadblock to a lot of the issues that you're having with your PMDD partner. A lot of the issues that you're having in your PMDD relationship is because you're holding on to a lot of things. So back to where I was, I paid the $600. I sat on the plane and I made it to my graduation. And the reason why I say it was an emotional roller coaster because it was the best experience ever. I was so glad that I went. When I woke up the next day and I started to walk on campus with my cap and gown on, it's a beautiful experience because as soon as you put your cap and gown on, all of them are different colors for the different areas of your degree of what you're getting. It's a university that goes all the way from bachelor's all the way up to doctorate. And when they see you, the response that I got was so validating, so encouraging, so motivating, so beautiful. It was like, congratulations, doctor. Oh my gosh, like doctor. So I went to got my little tassel and everything when I first started. And they're like, Dr. Alcaton, like, how does that feel? How does that feel for you to hear that? Like you're a doctor. Like they were validating me and they were giving me that kind of sense of like, I hadn't really allowed it to settle in. I hadn't taken that space and that time outside of my private clients to really sit with that. But because they're in the university, they're the faculty, they're the students, they're all these things, they know the work that it took to get to that point. And so from the moment I went to the hotel, they had congratulations to all the graduates. They had these caps and gowns everywhere. I went to the room and they had stuff. They had ceremonies for us. It was just such a beautiful experience that allowed me to really celebrate all of the hard work that I had done for, at this point, it had been like 7 years. And so I didn't regret it. So guess what? The cost that it took, the $600 that it took for me to get there was worth it. And I immediately felt like it was worth it. As soon as I got there, I walked across the stage. I had the hooding ceremony. So when you're a doctor, you sit down in your dissertation chair, who's in charge of your whole department, places the hood over you. Um, and then you sit there and then they pray over you, they speak life into you, they encourage you, they're telling you to take the gifts that you've gotten, take the tools that you've gotten and go help the world. That's basically what they say. They're like, you all have different focuses on what you're getting your degree in. Go change the world. Go be world changers. Go use your gift. Don't just have it and let it be for you. And that's the biggest part that I love about my university, is that it's all about serving. And how I am. It was directly in alignment with, if anyone's wondering what university I went to that I got my doctorate in, it's Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. Liberty University, and their motto is to go be champions of Christ. Go be a champion of Christ. Go be someone that goes out and serves the people. And that's everything that I stand for. And so I went to that ceremony. There was a ceremony of when they called my name and they had my name in the seat. If you follow me on Instagram, I put it all on there. And then also when I walked across the stage, they said my name, and all of these things. And it finally was sitting in. And this is a year past me getting my doctorate. And then we had this evening ceremony that night. We had senators from Congress speak to us as the keynote speakers. We had all of these people just speak to us and pray over us and encourage us and congratulate us. And I sat on the lawn with my daughter in my cap and gown. And I just, they had fireworks. It was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. Um, and I dealt with the issues that I had to in between. Another thing that happened, hence the emotional roller coaster, I got a rental car. And I have to tell this story because I've told it like 75 times by now, because I got a rental car. And I remember going when I originally went to the airport, and they were like, oh, you can get a rental car and it's an electric vehicle. Where I live in California, the majority of vehicles are electric. So I had no issue. So the guy at the counter was like, oh, you don't have an issue with having an electric vehicle? I'm like, no. And he was like, oh, great. So he was so excited. And so I went ahead and got the vehicle. I drove, I think it was like 300 miles from where I picked the vehicle up all the way to the university. And then I remember I was talking to my friend. I was like, I wonder how I'm going to charge this, because I've never had an electric vehicle. In my mind, there were charging stations at every gas station, but that's not a thing. I literally, by the time I got to the university that night at midnight, because I drove for 4 hours, I literally was on like 30%. So I was like, what I'll do is I will go to the graduation, which was like less than 2 miles away. And then after I do the first graduation, I will go get electricity. I was about to say gas on my electric vehicle. And then I'll go back to the next ceremony. Well, I went driving around because I was in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is very rural. They don't have a lot of electric vehicles. Therefore, they didn't have a lot of chargers. And a lot of the chargers that they had were specifically for Tesla. I didn't have a Tesla. I had like a Kia EV. I love the car. It's beautiful, gorgeous. But I couldn't find a freaking charger to save my life. So I finally found one in the parking lot of Target, of all places. But the chargers were taken. There were two cars that were taken. And so one of the cars, I saw someone plug up their vehicle, get out of their vehicle, get in somebody else's vehicle and drive off. So I'm like, what? And then another couple, it was an older couple, they were sitting in their vehicle, charging up their vehicle. So I'm like sitting there, like, how am I supposed to wait in line for this? If like, what's going on? So I literally waited an hour. And then the couple that was sitting in the vehicle, they were they just decided to go walk around Target because I guess that's what people do when they have electric vehicles. They just plug it up and they go do other things. Well, then the other car, I kept looking at it and it showed I finally walked over and looked at the screen. The screen showed that their car was fully like full. Their battery was full. And so I'm like, well, so what did I ended up doing? And I was like, please don't let me get in trouble for this because I don't know the proper protocol. It's kind of like being at the laundromat. You don't take someone's clothes out of the washer and dryer. But at this point, there was only one more plug and I was missing my ceremonies. So I took the plug out of their car and I put it into my car. And the older couple was helping me because they had been using electric vehicles. So I had to set up an account to even because apparently for this station you had to have an account with your credit card, all these things. So I start charging the car, and then the other guy finally comes back and driving in the other car, and he gets out and he's like, "Hey, paso," like he was Spanish. He's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Your car was full. There's literally a sign that says you're not supposed to leave your vehicle because for this reason, because then nobody else can use it." And he was like, "Okay," or whatever. So he got a little bit upset, but then what was he going to do? He drove off. And so then I sat there. Do you know it took me 99 minutes? And it reminded me of that song by Jay-Z, I got 99 problems, but an electric car ain't one. Well, it took me 99 minutes to fill up my vehicle from empty all the way to full. And guess how much it cost me? Only $33 US. I was like, what in the world? So I was like literally telling my friend was like, babe, they were like, babe, never get an electric car again. Never get. So again, I had went from this high of the ceremony to this low of like I'm sitting in the heat and I got allergies. I never get allergies. There was so much pollen. I had to go run into Target and get some Zyrtec. Like it was just crazy. I was sitting with my cap and gown. I was hot. I had to take it off. So I was in that place again where I was like, I was feeling low. I was feeling like, what is going on? This is crazy. Then I finally go to the evening ceremony. I had the same pivot moment where it was like, I don't even know if I want to go to the evening ceremony. I'm so tired. I've been out in the sun. I've been sitting in the electric vehicle, walking around Target, looking crazy for 40 days or 40 nights, what it felt like. And then finally I said, you know what? I was at that fork in the road again. We went out and we went and had dinner at Olive Garden. So we had one of my favorite meals. We had lasagna, um, pasta, we had cheesecake, we had a really good dinner. And then I went to the closing ceremony where they had all the fireworks and it was beautiful again. So my week was literally ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And what I want to let you know is all of this happened in my follicular phase where everything was supposed to be good. Everything was supposed to be amazing. But life will life. Horrible things will happen. Traumatic things will happen. And mine, a lot of my traumatic things came from childhood and past relationship issues, honestly, because I got to the university and I was having all these flashbacks of when I was there with my ex PMDD partner and I even talked to one of my classmates. And she said, when I started this journey, I had one husband and now I'm graduating and I remarried and had another one. And I told her and I said, don't feel bad. I completely understand. Not that I'm remarried, but I explained to her, I said, I also, had a partner at the beginning of this journey, which I did. And now that I'm at the end, culminating it, I don't. And that was a hard pill to swallow. It was like, I am now single. I don't have a partner, but I started this journey dedicating it to my partner. Like if you look at my dissertation, I literally dedicated it to my ex PMDD partner because a lot of the work that I was doing was to save my PMDD relationship and it fueled my practice and it fueled my purpose and it helped so many other people. But when I got to the finish line, I was like, I'm literally alone. And I don't mean that in a sense of there's not people that support me because there's hundreds of PMDD partners that have reached out to me, private clients, and whether you're my private client or you just listen to the podcast. And I really do appreciate when you DM me and I really do appreciate when you email me saying how the podcast has changed your relationship, changed your life. When you've messaged me, I would say, please, please, please leave those comments. Well, continue to email me because I love having the conversation. So I don't want to say like don't email me, but also put them on Apple Podcasts, or put them on my YouTube channel. Put them places where other PMDD partners can see the impact so that it can help them. Because a lot of times, all they need to see is that hope. All they need to see is that their relationship has been changed. Because a lot of times you can get into these places where it's really really hopeless, and you feel like there's no hope. Another big thing is the dating course that I've been recording, and I've been providing a lot of my experience of that. If you've not joined, the link is in the show notes. Join this course. It's an 8-week course. It's still going on. You can join at any time and get the recordings. But a lot of the things that have been coming out from doing this course has really been able to help you in your relationship. So I'm going to close on this. Now that you know my emotional roller coaster of a week, this is how I can help you. Wherever you are in your cycle, I don't want you to feel the pressure of having to only have good times in your follicular days. I want you to be real and honest and open with where you are in your cycle so that you can address the issues that you have. If you know that you need help, get help. Don't prolong it. Don't brush it off. Don't minimize it. If you know that you don't have peace in your PMDD relationship and you know that you're walking around on eggshells, your partner's walking around on eggshells, you know when your PMDD partner is not happy. I knew when my PMDD partner wasn't happy. I knew when I wasn't happy. And I knew that that's what compelled me to do something about it. And I want you to have that same mentality. I'm not going to allow us to stay in this place. That was my mantra, my whole relationship. I'm not going to allow us to stay in this place. I'm going to do something to change our relationship in a positive way. And I want you to understand that that's your responsibility when you're in a relationship. If you see that your partner's not there, you be the one to change. You be the one to utilize the tools. You be the one to step out and get help, because it's going to help the both of you. So until next time, this is Dr. Rose Alcaton signing off from Times Square in New York City. Until next time, I love you. We got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is, if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things, so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship, so you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.